What's up, guys? How's it going? Mr. Arnold coming back with another ODFP showcase. And in today's showcase, we are going to be talking about Benito Mussolini, the founder and leader of the Italian Fascist Party, who lived between the years of 1883 to 1945. He is noted for ruling Italy as a totalitarian dictator and held all the power until he overextended Italian armed forces during World War II. He was nicknamed Il Duce, meaning leader in Italian, and partnered with both Nazi Germany and Japan to form the Axis powers of World War II. Mussolini's story is going to begin in 1915 when Italy agreed to join the Allies in World War I. France and Britain secretly promised to give Italy certain Austro-Hungarian territories upon completion of the war. And when the Allies had finally won in 1918, Italy received just a small amount of the promised territories. And the other part of the territory that Italy once thought they were going to get became part of the new Yugoslavia. And as a result of the broken promises, many Italian nationalists like Benito Mussolini became outraged. Disorders within Italy erupted, and amid all the chaos, returning veterans of the war experienced unemployment. Now, amongst all the turmoil here, Italy's constitutional monarchy failed to create any order, and many soldiers began to lose trust in their political leaders and the democratic system that was in place here in Italy. Now, what we are going to see, in addition to the mounting political problems, we're also going to see economic problems. We're going to see trade is going to decline and taxes rising. And as a result, the government of Italy was soon split between feuding factions. Now, Benito Mussolini would soon emerge as the leader of the disgruntled Italians. And in 1919, he organized his followers into what became known as the Fascist Party. They took the name from the Latin term fascis, which meant a bundle of sticks wrapped together to form an axe, and became known as a symbol for unity and authority, and was used even way back when in the Roman Empire. Now, Mussolini was a very fiery speaker and charismatic leader, and promised to end corruption and replace turmoil with prosperity. Mussolini also captured the hearts of Italians when he spoke of reviving Roman greatness, pledging to turn the Mediterranean into a Roman lake once again. Now, fascism, this idea of fascism, Benito Mussolini, he turned Italy into a fascist state. And fascism is defined as a way of organizing society in which a government ruled by a dictator controls the lives of the people, and in which people are not allowed to disagree with that government. Oftentimes, fascist regimes, they promote high levels of nationalism and superiority to help in promoting certain goals and ideologies. And by 1925, guys, Mussolini had assumed more power and had taken up the title Il Duce, meaning the leader in Italian. He would go on to suppress any rival political party, muzzle the press, rig elections, and replace elected officials with fascist supporters. Eventually, Mussolini created a dictatorship upheld by terror, in which critics were thrown in prison, forced into exile, and in some cases murdered. And similar to Stalin and Hitler, Mussolini utilized a secret police force and propaganda that bolstered his regime. Now, Mussolini would eventually control the economy by seizing power over Italian industry, agriculture, and trade, and workers were forbidden to strike, and wages were intentionally kept low. In order for this system to prosper, Mussolini branded Italian society to praise the state and not the individual successes. We are going to see, to the fascists of Italy, the glorious state being all important, and men, women, and even children were bombarded with slogans that were often heard on loudspeakers, in street corners, and propaganda posters that were posted all throughout towns and cities. Mussolini really believed, he knew that in order for his fascist state to prosper and continue on, he would have to target the youth of Italy for this to carry on for more than one generation. Children in Italy, they were taught to obey strict military discipline, and learning emphasized the glories of ancient Rome. And Mussolini himself. By the 1930s, guys, Mussolini had a generation of young soldiers who stood ready to back Il Duce's drive to expand Italian influence. And overall, Mussolini was successful in creating a totalitarian state in which a one-party dictatorship here, guys, attempted to regulate every aspect of the lives of Italians. Now, by 1935, Mussolini had created a strong militaristic nation and wanted to imperialize land for the empire he was trying to establish. So with this goal in mind, Mussolini targeted an African nation who was able to fend itself from European conquest during the era of new imperialism. That nation being Ethiopia. The Italians would later dominate the valiant Ethiopian forces with new weapon technology and unleash tanks, machine guns, poisonous gases, and even airplanes. The Ethiopian king quickly sought the help of the League of Nations. However, the League of Nations was extremely weak. They were very noodle-armed and weak, and they had no real power to enforce sanctions on Mussolini. And by early 1936, guys, Italy had conquered Ethiopia. Now, in that same year of 1936, in the face of apparent weakness of Britain, France, and the United States, Germany, Italy, and Japan formed what became known as the Rome-Berlin-Tokyo Axis, also known as the Axis powers. These three nations agreed to fight Soviet communism and agreed not to interfere with one another's plans for territorial expansion. And the agreement cleared the way for these anti-democratic aggressor powers to take even bolder steps in the coming years. And in 1940, guys, we're going to see Italy enter World War II when Mussolini ordered Italian troops to invade Greece and parts of North Africa here around the Mediterranean Sea. Italy had already established Libya as a colony. However, things really were escalated when Italian soldiers crossed into Egypt here, which belonged to the British. The Italian troops were no match for the British, and Mussolini quickly received help from the Nazis when Hitler sent one of the world's best tank commanders, General Erwin Rommel, to North Africa. Now, Rommel was nicknamed the Desert Fox because he helped the Axis powers in pushing the British back across the desert to Cairo, Egypt. And at the same time this was all going on in North Africa, Italian forces yet again were experiencing stiff resistance, this time in the Balkans, in Greece right here, guys. Greek and Yugoslavian guerrilla forces were wreaking havoc on Italian forces. And in 1941, German troops once again came to the aid of Italy. And they provided reinforcement. And by 1941, guys, most of Eastern Europe was under Axis control. However, in the following year of 1942, though, the tide turned on the Axis powers and began to favor the Allies. We are going to see in November of 1942, Rommel and his forces lose the fierce and crucial battle of El Alamein in North Africa to the British, who were driven back from Libya into Tunisia. So they pushed the Nazis back from Libya into Tunisia. And as a result of that, guys, we're going to see American boots eventually hit the dirt here in Africa. In May of 1943, guys, we are going to see American forces come from the west and travel east through Morocco and through Algeria, and they're going to sandwich Rommel and his forces right in the middle. Eventually, they're going to surrender, and in July of 1943, a combined British and American army landed first in Sicily and later in southern Italy and defeated the Italian forces here on the peninsula in about a month. Now, while all this is going on, you might be thinking, where's Mussolini? After the defeat of his army, the Italians overthrew Mussolini and signed an armistice. However, the fighting did not stop there. Hitler actually sent German troops to rescue Mussolini here in Italy and stiffen the will of the Italians fighting in the north. For the next 18 months, the Allies pushed slowly up the Italian peninsula, suffering heavy losses and casualties. However, the Italian invasion was a decisive event because it weakened Hitler and the Nazis by forcing them to fight in another front here in the south. Now, on April 27th, 1945, Mussolini and his mistress were unsuccessful in trying to flee Italy for Spain and were caught by a group of Italian communist supporters. On the next day, April 28, 1945, Mussolini was shot and killed by members of the Italian Communist political party. However, it does not end there, guys. We are going to see Mussolini in his body, his corpse, being sent and loaded on a moving van, a moving truck to the Italian city of Milan, where his body was then spat at and kicked and even shot some more and eventually hung up on a meat hook on a gas station, near a gas station, the Esso gas station in Milan, for the whole public to see. As he was hanging, as his corpse was hanging there, we have onlookers that threw rocks and they stoned him even more, and the bodies were eventually taken care of, and Mussolini got a burial later on throughout here in World War II. Now, with that being stated, guys, the big idea I need you to keep in mind with Benito Mussolini is that he was the first true fascist ruler here right after World War I. Hitler would follow the precedent that Mussolini had set, and we are going to see the Italians kind of joining forces with Japan and Germany to form the Axis powers. All right, that's all I have for this ODFP showcase. I hope you guys enjoyed. Mr. Ronald signing off. I'll see you guys later. Take care.